I, female, 25, moved out of my parents' house after they tried to force me to give up my room for my pregnant sister. Throwaway because my sister knows my main account. I've been lurking on here for ages but never thought I'd be posting my own family issues. So basically, I've been living with my parents, Chuck, male 53, and Nancy, female 51, for the past 3 years since finishing college. I know, living with parents in your mid-20s sounds kind of pathetic, but I swear there was a good reason. I've been saving for a house down payment and aggressively saving money. 70% of my paychecks from my software developer job go straight into savings. I'm actually pretty proud of that. One of the few things I've done right, I guess. I only needed about 6 more months to reach my goal, which I've been planning for years. But then my sister Kayla, female, 21, told everyone about 3 weeks ago that she's pregnant, 5 months pregnant, with her boyfriend Mitchell's, male, 23, baby. And I was shocked, but also trying to be supportive, because that's what I always do. I'm the responsible one, always have been. Some background that's probably important. Kayla has always been the golden child in our family. I'm not even exaggerating. When she turned 16, my parents bought her a car. A whole ass car. Meanwhile, I had to work part-time for 2 years at this horrible ice cream shop to save up for my crappy used Honda. And that's just one example. In high school, she could basically go to any party she wanted. Me. I had this insane 10 p.m. curfew that my dad enforced like he was running a military operation. And don't even get me started on college expectations. I was expected to maintain perfect grades, which I did, because that's what responsible oldest daughters do, right? Meanwhile, Kayla has dropped out of community college twice, and my parents were just like, "Oh, honey, you'll figure it out when you're ready." And the thing is, I love my sister. I really do. She can be sweet and funny when she wants to be. It's not her fault. Our parents treat us differently. I've always tried to be there for her and not make her feel bad about the obvious favoritism. It's just exhausting sometimes. Anyway, after the pregnancy announcement, my parents immediately went into full grandparent mode. They were shocked for 5 minutes and then started planning how to convert part of the house for the baby. We have a 4-bedroom house, my parents' room, my room, Kayla's room, and a small home office. So last Tuesday, I come home from work. It was a really rough day. My project manager was being a complete jerk about some minor bug, and I walk into my bedroom to find my mom packing up my stuff, just going through my drawers and putting my things in boxes. I stood there for a second trying to process what was happening. When I asked my mom what she was doing, she told me they were moving me down to the basement room because Kayla needed my space for the baby. I was really upset. The basement room is literally half the size of my current room and has no windows. It's cold and kind of damp and honestly a little depressing. I asked why Kayla couldn't use her own room for the baby since it's almost the same size as mine. My dad said Kayla needs the attached bathroom because she's pregnant. When I pointed out that no one had talked to me about this before they started moving my stuff, my dad told me this wasn't a discussion. It was just what was happening. I got frustrated because they were treating me like a child instead of a 25-year-old adult who actually pays them rent. Yes, I pay rent even though I'm saving for a house. I reminded them of this and asked if I should get some say in which room I use. My mom told me that family has to make sacrifices for each other and that my sister needs this more than I do right now. Then I noticed they had already taken apart my desk. When I asked about it, they said they promised it to Mitchell to use as a changing table. My desk, that I use for work when I work from home. They didn't even ask. I tried to be reasonable. I suggested maybe Kayla and Mitchell could get their own place. He works in construction and makes decent money when he actually works consistently, which is another issue. Or maybe we could convert the home office instead. But my dad just shut me down completely, saying that as long as I live under their roof, I'll do as they say, and that Kayla needs this more than I do right now. And I just got really upset. This was the last straw after a lifetime of this treatment, always being the one expected to sacrifice, always being the one who has to be understanding while Kayla gets whatever she wants. I called my best friend Denise, female, 25, who has been telling me for years that my family dynamic is messed up. She helped me find an apartment in a part of town that's not amazing, but definitely safe enough. It's small, but it's mine. I signed the lease that Friday. I'm not normally impulsive at all, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I waited until Wednesday, when I knew they would all be at Kayla's ultrasound appointment. I took my essential stuff. Thankfully, not much was packed yet, loaded up my car, and left. I left a note saying I needed space and asking them not to contact me for a while. Then I blocked their numbers. All of them. I've never done anything like that before. It's been 2 weeks now with no contact. I unblocked them after a week, but haven't responded to anything. Some days I feel guilty. Other days I feel free. Like I can breathe for the first time in forever. According to my phone, I have 37 missed calls and over 100 texts. They range from angry to manipulative. My mom even texted that Kayla is worried about stress affecting the baby because of me leaving. Denise says Mitchell has been really distant since I left, barely coming around, making excuses about work. So Kayla is even more dependent on my parents now. Part of me wonders if I overreacted. I was only 6 months away from my savings goal. Should I have just sucked it up and lived in the basement? But another part of me feels like if I hadn't left now, I would have just kept letting them walk all over me forever. I don't know. Did I do the right thing, or am I being selfish? Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. I posted this before going to bed and woke up to hundreds of comments. Thank you all for the support. A lot of people are asking why I didn't confront them about the favoritism earlier. Honestly, I didn't really see it clearly until now. It was just normal to me. Like, that's just how our family worked. Kayla needed more attention, more help, more everything. I was the responsible one who could handle things on my own. It took my friend Denise years of pointing it out before I started to see the pattern. To answer the questions about Mitchell, he and Kayla have been together for about a year. He seems nice enough, but kind of immature. He works construction with his uncle's company, but is always talking about starting his own business someday. Some of you are asking if I've ever tried talking to my parents about the favoritism before. I've tried a few times over the years, but it never went well. They either deny it completely or they justify it. After a while, I just stopped bringing it up. To the people saying I should have just stayed and saved for 6 more months, maybe you're right. That was my original plan. But honestly, the desk thing was what pushed me over the edge. They didn't just want my room, they were giving away my belongings without even asking me. What else would they have decided I didn't need? Now for the first update. So a lot has happened since I last posted about my family situation 3 months ago. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented and sent messages. For those asking about my living situation, I'm still in the apartment I found. It's small, like really small, but it's mine, and nobody can just decide to pack up my stuff without asking me. I've actually made it pretty cozy. I bought a secondhand couch that I'm weirdly proud of, found it for $80 and cleaned it myself, and set up a little home office area in the corner of my living room. My work actually approved me to work from home 2 days a week, which has been a big help with gas prices being what they are. Oh, and I adopted a cat. His name is Oliver, and he's this grumpy 6-year-old orange tabby that nobody wanted because he's too old or whatever. He basically ignores me half the time, but then randomly decides to sit on my lap when I'm working. Honestly, he's been better company than my family ever was. Speaking of family, I've been keeping minimal contact, like bare minimum. I'll occasionally send a "I'm fine" text, just so they know I'm not dead, but that's about it. I've been trying to process everything and establish some actual boundaries for literally the first time in my life. Denise, my best friend, still follows Kayla on Instagram, so I get occasional updates about what's happening with them. Apparently, Mitchell has been missing a bunch of doctor appointments lately. He keeps saying he's working overtime to save for the baby, but from what Denise tells me, it seems like he's just avoiding responsibility, which is not surprising at all if you knew him. They've fully converted my old bedroom into a nursery now. Pink walls with clouds painted on the ceiling, even though they supposedly don't know the gender yet. Kayla wanted to be surprised. My parents still seem to expect that I'll get over it and come back. Like they genuinely don't understand why I left. Kayla is about 8 months pregnant now, and apparently having some complications. High blood pressure and swelling and stuff. The doctor has her on partial bed rest, from what I've heard. Part of me feels bad for her, but another part of me is just tired of always being expected to care about her problems when nobody ever cared about mine. My parents' messages have definitely changed over time. At first, they were angry. How could you abandon your family? And you're being incredibly selfish right now. But now, they've moved into guilt trip territory. My dad sent this whole paragraph about how family doesn't abandon each other. And my mom keeps sending these manipulative texts about how I'm punishing Kayla for their mistake. The worst was when my mom sent me pictures from Kayla's birthday dinner with this message. There was an empty chair where you should have been. We all felt your absence. Like, are you kidding me? Now you notice when I'm not there. Where was this concern when I was actually living there and being treated like a second-class family member? I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, wondering if I'm being selfish, if I should just suck it up and help them. But then other times I get so angry that they still don't understand why I left. They think this is just about the room. It was never about the room. It was about a lifetime of always being the one expected to sacrifice. About 6 weeks after I moved out, I finally accepted a call from my mom. She started by asking if I was eating properly. Classic mom deflection. I told her I was fine and asked how everyone was doing. She did this heavy, dramatic sigh and said Kayla was having a difficult pregnancy. I asked about the complications because, even though I'm mad, I don't want anything bad to happen to my sister or the baby. She told me something about elevated blood pressure and swelling and that the doctor ordered bed rest. Then she said something like, "It's been really hard on all of us," with this emphasis on all of us, like I should feel bad for not being there. I asked if there was anything I could do to help, because I'm still me, I guess, and of course, she immediately jumped to, "Well, you could come home where you belong." Not even subtle about it. I told her pretty firmly that I wasn't moving back. Her tone completely changed, and she was like, "I don't understand why you're being so stubborn about this. We're your family." I tried to explain how I felt about the years of favoritism, but she cut me off with, "That's ancient history. We need to focus on now," which is basically their way of saying, we don't want to acknowledge we did anything wrong. I ended up hanging up when she wouldn't listen, just completely refused to acknowledge my perspective. But here's the big news that happened 2 weeks ago. Mitchell broke up with Kayla at 8.5 months pregnant. Just, wow. According to Denise, who heard it from their mutual friend, he's apparently been seeing someone else for the past month and has even started questioning if the baby is actually his. Despite Kayla insisting she's been faithful. I mean, I believe Kayla on this one. She has many flaws, but I don't think cheating is one of them. So now Kayla has officially moved into my old room permanently, and my parents are basically preparing to co-parent this baby. And suddenly, they're desperate for me to come back. My dad called and left this voicemail that was like, "We know we handled things badly, but your sister needs you now." Because of course, they only acknowledge they did something wrong when they need something from me. I did send a baby shower gift, this really nice stroller system that cost me nearly a full paycheck. But I declined to actually attend the shower because I just couldn't. I couldn't sit there and pretend everything was fine. This caused a whole mess that somehow spilled onto Facebook with extended family members taking sides. My cousin Jen actually tagged me in this passive-aggressive post about family loyalty that got like 40 comments. I just blocked her. On a more positive note, I actually got a promotion at work. It's not a huge raise, but it's recognition that I've been doing a good job, which feels nice after years of being undervalued at home. I've also started going to therapy. I have trouble saying no to people and setting boundaries, no kidding. I've also made friends with a couple in my apartment building who are around my age. We've had dinner together a few times, and they're actually really cool. It's nice having people who don't have any expectations of me beyond just being myself. So, Kayla gave birth last week, a little girl named Olivia. She was a bit early, about 3 weeks, but healthy from what I've heard. I sent flowers and a care package, but kept my distance initially. My parents kept calling and texting though, and I finally agreed to a brief hospital visit. I told them I'd stay for 30 minutes max. It was awkward. Kayla was actually tearfully grateful that I came. She seemed genuinely happy to see me and wanted me to hold the baby, but my parents were cold and passive-aggressive the whole time. My mom made this comment like, "Nice of you to make time for your family," in this tone that made me want to walk right back out the door. But then I held my niece and, I don't know, she's just this tiny innocent baby who had no part in any of this mess. I felt this weird protective instinct kick in that I wasn't expecting. I'm still maintaining my boundaries with my parents though. I refuse to be manipulated back into that toxic dynamic. But I'm wondering if I should increase contact just for my niece's sake. My mom texted me yesterday saying, "Kayla is really struggling. She needs her big sister. We all miss you." And part of me wants to help, but another part is screaming, "It's a trap!" I honestly don't know what to do. Edit, thanks for all the responses so far. To clarify a few things, yes, I'm financially independent. My job pays well, and while the apartment is eating more of my savings than I'd like, I'm still able to put some money away each month. A lot of people are asking about Mitchell. From what I understand, he hasn't completely disappeared yet. He saw the baby once at the hospital, but has been making excuses about work ever since. Kayla is devastated, but not surprised. Like she suspected he was pulling away, but was in denial. For those suggesting I establish specific boundaries instead of cutting contact, that's actually what my therapist recommended too. I'm working on figuring out what those boundaries would look like. Maybe scheduled visits where I come see the baby, but leave if my parents start with the guilt trips. Now for the second update. So it's been about 2 months since baby Olivia was born. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I'd post another update, but so much has happened. Quick life update. I'm still in my tiny apartment with Oliver, my grumpy cat. He's actually been super clingy lately, which is weird for him, but kinda nice, I guess. I've been working a ton of overtime at my job and finally reached my savings goal for a house down payment. Like, I actually hit it last month and have started looking at properties in this suburb about 30 minutes from my parents' place. Far enough that they can't just drop by, but close enough that I could visit my niece if I wanted to. For the past 2 months, I've been sending weekly gifts for the baby, mostly just cute little outfits and practical stuff. I'd text Kayla maybe once a week to check in about Olivia, but kept it pretty surface level. How's she sleeping? Is she eating okay? That kind of stuff. My parents would still try to call me like 3 to 4 times a week, but I'd usually let it go to voicemail. The messages were always about how Kayla needs her big sister and how they're struggling without me, which, not my problem. That's what my therapist keeps telling me to say to myself when I feel guilty. Oh, and I almost ran into my parents at the grocery store about a month ago. I literally saw them at the end of the cereal aisle and panicked. I abandoned my half-filled cart and basically ran out of the store. Spent the whole night feeling both relieved and super guilty about it. Like, who does that? Me, apparently. But anyway, everything changed about 3 weeks ago. I got a call from my dad at 2 a.m. Normally, I never would have answered because of the boundaries I've been trying to set. But something about getting a call that late made me think it might be an actual emergency. And there was something in his voice when he said, "Melanie," that I've never heard before. He was barely making sense at first, talking really fast, and his voice kept breaking. Eventually, I figured out he was saying that Kayla was having severe postpartum depression. Like, severe. He said she had been crying nonstop for days, barely functioning, not eating, not sleeping. He and mom were completely exhausted because they were working full-time while also caring for a newborn because Kayla couldn't be left alone with the baby. I remember this one moment so clearly. His voice cracked, and he told me he didn't know what to do anymore and called me Mel. He hasn't called me Mel since I was like 12. I asked if Kayla was getting professional help, and he said they were trying to handle it as a family. Classic my parents, thinking they can solve everything without outside help. I told him pretty firmly that Kayla needed actual medical attention immediately. Postpartum depression is serious and can be dangerous. And then he just confessed that they were completely overwhelmed, that they didn't even know how to navigate the healthcare system for something like this. Which is ridiculous, because my dad has worked at the same company for like 20 years and has good insurance, but whatever. I offered to research some resources in the morning and send them info. Then he admitted something I honestly never thought I'd hear, that they were wrong and that they needed me, that my sister needed me, and that the baby needed me too. I literally didn't say anything for a full minute, just trying to process hearing my dad actually admit they were wrong about anything, ever. And then he started crying. My dad. I have never heard my father cry in my entire life. Not when his own father died. Not ever. I told him I'd come by in the morning to assess the situation. He thanked me like 1,000,000 times before hanging up. I couldn't sleep at all that night, just lying there, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to help without falling back into old patterns. I actually called my therapist's emergency line at like 4 a.m., which I felt super guilty about, but she always says that's what it's there for. She helped me come up with some clear boundaries before I went over there. So the next morning, I drove to my parents' house, and guys, oh my God, I was not prepared for what I found. The house was a disaster. Like dishes piled up everywhere, laundry all over, baby stuff scattered throughout the house, and my parents looked so tired and different. My mom's hair was greasy and unbrushed. My dad had this patchy beard thing going on that I'd never seen before. But Kayla, she was the worst. She was just lying on the couch, staring at nothing. Her eyes were so swollen from crying, they were almost shut. When I said her name, she barely looked at me. The baby was in this little bassinet nearby and seemed physically okay, thank God, but the whole environment was clearly unstable. My mom burst into tears the second she saw me. My dad just stood there looking completely worn out. And then they did something they've never done before. They apologized. Like, really apologized. My mom told me they had always taken me for granted and never realized how much they relied on me to keep things running smoothly. She admitted they'd been wrong for so long. My dad admitted that they'd been terrible parents to me and that he could see that now. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, "Now you realize this." But they looked so exhausted already. The weirdest part was when Kayla suddenly spoke up from the couch. She'd been so quiet, I almost forgot she was listening. She told me they always favored her, and she let it happen because it was easier. She admitted she never stood up for me because she liked getting her way, and she didn't realize what it felt like to be treated that way until Mitchell abandoned her. Oh yeah, Mitchell has completely vanished. Not responding to any legal attempts for child support, apparently moved to another state with his new girlfriend. What a prize. I had this really weird mix of feelings. Part of me felt vindicated that they finally recognized how they'd treated me, but another part felt genuinely sad seeing them all so hurt. I told them I would help, but with conditions. I laid out everything very clearly. 1, I would not be moving back home. 2, I would help 3 days a week on a specific schedule. 3, they all had to attend family therapy sessions. 4, Kayla needed to get professional help for her PPD immediately. 5, everyone had to acknowledge the past patterns and commit to changing them. 6, my independence and decisions needed to be respected. They agreed to everything. They were so desperate, they would have agreed to anything. So for the past 3 weeks, we've been doing this structured intervention thing. Kayla started on medication and therapy and is slowly improving. My parents have been going to family therapy sessions, though my dad still occasionally makes excuses for their past behavior. And I've been developing a relationship with my niece while maintaining my boundaries. We had this really intense therapy session last week, where the therapist asked each of us to identify patterns we wanted to change. My mom admitted she enabled Kayla's irresponsibility because it made her feel needed. My dad acknowledged treating me like the reliable one who didn't need attention or support. Kayla confessed feeling overwhelmed by their expectations that she'd naturally be good at being a mom. And I finally told them straight up that I've always felt like an outsider in my own family. The therapist has been helping us establish new communication patterns, like when my parents tried to subtly pressure me into coming over on one of my off days, I stood firm and reminded them of our agreement. And they actually backed down, which never would have happened before. I've also been helping Kayla apply for assistance programs, and we're making plans for her to eventually get her own apartment with some support from my parents. I decided to postpone my house hunting for a bit and redirect some funds to therapy and occasionally help with Kayla's expenses. But I've made it very clear this is my choice and not an obligation. There was this moment last week that kind of got to me. I was teaching Kayla how to bathe the baby, which, how did no one show her this before? And she suddenly told me that I would have made a better mother than her. I told her she was learning, just like I had to learn to stand up for myself. I definitely don't regret moving out. Honestly, if I hadn't, I don't think any of these changes would have happened. They never would have realized how much they depended on me. They never would have acknowledged the favoritism. They would have just kept taking advantage forever. Our relationship is fundamentally different now. I'm not sure if better is the right word yet, but healthier maybe. Kayla and I are developing what feels like our first actual adult relationship based on mutual respect. My parents still slip into old patterns sometimes, but now I have the confidence to call it out immediately. Sometimes a family crisis shows who everyone truly is, but it also gives you a chance to build something better if everyone's willing to be honest. I'm hopeful about the future, but taking it slow. Healing is a process, not an event, my therapist's favorite phrase. I'm just taking it one day at a time.